The enthusiasm around the Harris-Walz campaign is seen at their rallies, no doubt. It's also showing up in new polling that we want to bring to you today, showing the Democratic ticket has made some gains in some battleground states. What does momentum look like in the polls? Harry Enten is here. What are you seeing?
What am I seeing? So these were these New York Times Siena College polls that came out over the weekend. And look, this is Democrat versus Trump margin. This is May, Biden versus Trump. You see plenty of red on this side of your screen, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. Of course, that quote-unquote blue wall. This was back in May. You saw Trump up by 3, Trump up by 1 in Wisconsin, Biden up by a single point in Michigan. The trend line here is what's so important. So let's jump ahead from May to August. We go from some red on this side of the screen. Look at all this blue on this side of the screen. Pennsylvania, Harris by 4. Wisconsin, Harris by 4. Michigan, Harris by 4. So you're seeing those comments on Trump on social media kind of going bananas, and you're wondering why. It's because he's looking at polling data like this, which shows clear momentum from Donald Trump to Kamala Harris as Joe Biden's got out of the race. I'll note still no clear leader up here, but you would much rather be Kamala Harris up by 4 within the margin of error than Joe Biden down by 3 in Pennsylvania, down 1 in Wisconsin, and only up by 1 in Michigan within the margin of error. These are 3 to 5 point movements towards the Democratic ticket. Clear momentum, and it's clearly angering Donald Trump.
But take us inside the numbers. Who is Harris appealing to that Joe Biden was not when we had these numbers?
Yeah, so, okay. Is it that Harris is getting Republican voters? No. It's not that she's getting Donald Trump voters from 2020. What is she doing? Number one, she's coalescing the Democratic base. So look, in Biden this spring, he was getting only 90% of the voters who voted for him back in 2020. Look at it now. What do we see? We see Kamala Harris is getting 93% of those voters. So we see that momentum. The other thing that we see is those untraditional voters. Those voters, there's all this talk that Donald Trump was going to get these voters off the sidelines and get them to vote for him who didn't vote in 2020. Back in the spring, look at that. Joe Biden was only getting 28% of the 2020 non-voters. Look at where Kamala Harris is now. She's getting 43% of those voters, a 15-point jump. So Kamala Harris is doing two things here. Number one, she's getting more of those untraditional voters. And number two, she's coalescing that Democratic base.
Are you seeing signs in other polling of the Harris momentum as well?
Yeah, okay. So if it's just one poll, I'm not that interested. But take a look here. This is among those certain to vote. This is the Democrat versus Trump in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. This is an Ipsos poll that came out last week. Look at this, the June margin, Biden versus Trump. We see Trump was up by 2, very similar to what we saw in those New York Times Siena College polls. Look at where we are now in this August margin. Look at that, +2 for Harris. So again, a 4-point movement towards Harris, again within the margin of error. And the last thing I'll note, look at this. If Harris just wins up in the Great Lakes, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, she can lose Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia, and she gets to exactly 270 electoral votes.
All right, so momentum it is today.
Momentum it is.
Thank you, Harry.
Thank you.
CNN's Isaac Dover is here with the very latest. How does the Harris team view things this morning, Isaac?
Well, look, John, they obviously are glad to see good poll numbers following a good couple of weeks for the vice president since she got into this campaign. Remember, we're only talking about 3 weeks here since Joe Biden dropped out. But they're trying not to get too ahead of themselves. Harris herself was in San Francisco yesterday at a fundraiser, and she said to donors there that she's never been one to really believe in the polls, whether they're up or they're down. What we know is the stakes are so high, and we can take nothing for granted in this moment. And look, what the Harris campaign is focused on here is making sure that people don't get feel like the race is done, feel like they don't have to do a lot of the work here. There are very few people who believe that this race won't come down to a couple of 100,000 voters at most between a couple of states, and that's the sort of thing that could even, doesn't matter where the popular vote goes, could end up swinging the Electoral College.
It's amazing to think about Democrats talking about complacency when just 3.5 weeks ago it was Republicans talking about complacency there. So what does the week have in store in terms of a policy rollout and I guess the first ever appearance between President Biden and Kamala Harris since he has left the race?
Yeah, we saw them briefly on the tarmac when that prisoner exchange happened at Andrews Air Force Base. But this will be an event on Thursday in Maryland, right outside D.C., with the two of them there together. It is put out as an official government event, not as a campaign event exactly, but they clearly are going to be doing it in the sense of passing the torch. What the White House has told us so far is that it will be focused on lowering costs for Americans. And what that is important is because not only is it Harris and Biden talking about economic issues, but it's the two of them staying very closely connected to each other. And that is something that we've seen since Harris got into this race, even as the Republicans in the Trump campaign have tried to say that Biden's record is bad and Harris is tied to it in a bad way. That's not the approach that they're taking.
Isaac Dovere, great to see you this morning. Always great to have you on in the morning. Appreciate it. Sarah?
All right, here we go again. False claims about crowd size from Donald Trump, and even more talk about Kamala Harris's race and childless cat ladies from his running mate, J.D. Vance. Just a few of the new and familiar lines of attack we heard this weekend as Donald Trump tonight sits down for an interview with Elon Musk. Let's bring in CNN's Steve Contorno. Steve, some Republicans want to see a more disciplined, as you heard from Isaac Dovere, message from Trump going after Harris. But is that what they're getting?
Certainly doesn't seem so far, Sarah. I think scattershot is probably the best word to describe what we saw from the former president over the weekend. He made fun of Senator Jon Tester's weight, the Democrat in Montana. He called Tim Walz, quote, very freakish. He said Harris Walz supporters were pink-haired Marxists, looters, perverts, flag burners, Hamas supporters, drug dealers, gun grabbers, and human traffickers. And he also continued to be fixated on the crowd size of what Vice President Harris is getting versus his own. In fact, in a series of social media posts, he shared debunked footage and claims that Harris was doctoring her crowd size. These were AI images that they were sharing. He said that she should be disqualified because they faked their crowd sizes when these photos were easily debunked. Meanwhile, his running mate continues to be answering questions about some of his past statements and trying to focus the attacks more on what they say are the anti-family policies of the Harris-Walz ticket. Take a listen to what J.D. Vance told our CNN over the weekend.
I think that what it is two people, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, who aren't comfortable in their own skin because they aren't comfortable with their policy positions for the American people. And so they're name calling instead of actually telling the American people how they're going to make their lives better. I think that's weird, Dana, but look, they can call me whatever they want to.
Do you believe Kamala Harris is black?
I believe that Kamala Harris is whatever she says she is, but I believe importantly that President Trump is right that she's a chameleon. She pretends to be one thing in front of one audience.
Now, still not much campaign action from Donald Trump this week, though he will, as you said, Sarah, speak to Elon Musk later today. J.D. Vance, meanwhile, will be more active on the campaign trail in the coming days.
Steve, just curious what you can tell me about the Trump campaign saying that they have been hacked. What do we know on that front?
Yeah, there's still a lot we're still trying to figure out about this. The Trump campaign claims that a, quote, high-ranking official in the campaign was hacked from Microsoft by Iranian hackers. Now, Iran, we should say, has so far denied this and is unclear if Iran was responsible. Microsoft has so far declined to comment. The U.S. government has sort of not shared with public any details that it has had at this point. This is all stemming from Politico reporting over the weekend that it had received emails including internal communications and a research dossier on J.D. Vance that the campaign had put together. The campaign in a statement saying these documents were obtained illegally from foreign sources hostile to the United States, trying to sow chaos throughout our democratic process. I should note, Sarah, that Donald Trump was the recipient of this kind of foreign interference back in 2016. He actually encouraged Russia to go after Senator Clinton's emails and then continue to talk about them well into the race.
We all remember that. Steve Contorno, thank you so much. Appreciate your reporting this morning.